You ever wonder what it really takes for someone to completely flip on a political belief they held dear? Well, today we're diving into some fascinating research that did just that. It analyzed over 100 documented cases of Trump supporters who publicly changed their minds. So, what was the final straw? Let's get into it.
Wow. I mean, just let that quote hang there for a second. This isn't some talking head on TV or a political opponent. This is coming from someone who put their faith in a leader only to end up feeling, well, destroyed.
So who said that? This is Nathan Hooven. He's a disabled Air Force veteran, and he voted for Trump. And his journey from being a committed supporter to feeling completely disillusioned is really at the heart of what we're exploring today. Nathan's story is the perfect place to start. In February 2025, he was fired from his job at a medical facility for veterans. Now, this wasn't just a random layoff. It was part of a federal downsizing initiative. So for Nathan, you can imagine, this felt like a massive, personal betrayal from the very administration he'd supported, one that had promised to be a champion for veterans.
And here's the thing. As powerful as Nathan's story is, the research shows it is not a one-off, not even close. It's actually part of a much, much bigger pattern.
The analysis we're digging into today confirmed more than 100 cases just like Nathan's, all documented between 2024 and 2025. And these aren't anonymous comments online, okay? These are on-the-record, verified stories from people from all walks of life. We're talking veterans, business owners, you name it, who all publicly broke away.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, the core finding of the research is pretty clear. These breaks weren't happening because of some high-minded political debate. Nope. People changed their minds on politics, stopped being this abstract thing you see on TV, and started having a direct and often very negative impact on their actual lives.
And this really spells it out, doesn't it? The data is crystal clear. This wasn't about some big ideological flip-flop. It was all about personal consequences. It shifted from, I disagree with that idea, to this is actually hurting me and my family.
Okay, so the report breaks down these triggers into two main buckets. Let's dig into the first one, and this is a big one. This is when a policy decision hits you right in the wallet.
Take Beth Benekai, for example. She's a small business owner whose company, Busy Baby, was put at risk by tariffs. She had supported the economic policies thinking they'd help, but instead she found her entire livelihood threatened. A huge national policy suddenly became a very, very personal financial crisis.
And the pattern continues. Here we have Ryan Amick, another Air Force veteran. And does this sound familiar? Just like Nathan Hooven, he was a supporter who ended up losing his federal job, this time at the IRS. The report actually links his firing directly to a specific piece of legislation, which just reinforces this theme.
Or look at Sam Sanchez, a business owner. He was on board with a tough immigration policy because the promise was that it would only target, quote, criminals. But what he saw with his own eyes was something different. He saw it affecting what he called the working people. And for him, that disconnect, that gap between the promise and the reality was the breaking point.
All right, so that's the first category, when policy gets personal and financial. Now let's shift gears to the second major path the analysis found. This one isn't about money. This one is about when people feel a moral line has been crossed.
This is Fred Higginbotham, a voter from Missouri. For him, the final straw was what he perceived as dishonesty and authoritarian behavior. He got so fed up that he actually went to a town hall and publicly confronted his representative about it, calling Trump a dictator.
Now, this next quote comes from someone who had a real front row seat, Brian Butler. He voted for Trump in both 2016 and 2020. But his reason for breaking away wasn't about one specific policy. It was this bigger, deeper fear for, as he puts it, our country, our democracy, our way of life.
So you might be asking, who exactly is Brian Butler? Well, here's the kicker. The research identifies him as Trump Employee 5 in the classified documents case. So his perspective isn't from watching the news from afar. It comes from being a direct inside observer of the very events that sparked his concerns.
Okay, so we've heard these incredibly powerful personal stories. But what happens when you pull the lens back and look at the big picture? Let's zoom out and see what the data from all these 100+ cases really tells us.
And this chart lays it out perfectly. The research found a clear hierarchy of what pushed people over the edge. And look at number 1, the economy, your job, your business, your wallet. That direct financial pain was by far the most powerful trigger. After that, you see concerns about basic competence and integrity, then cruelty and fundamental principles like the rule of law. What's also fascinating is when these breaks happened. They weren't just random events spread out over time. You can see clear clusters. Notice that big spike in March of 2025? That happened right after the federal downsizing that cost people like Nathan Hooven their jobs. It really suggests a direct cause and effect relationship.
So at the end of the day, what this all tells us is that there's a really clear pattern here. For some voters, political support isn't a blank check. It's conditional. And when those big, abstract promises clash with concrete, personal harm, whether that's to their finances, their morals, or their way of life, that support can shatter. And it leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. What is the true nature of loyalty between a voter and a leader?